This is a Hot Pie Original.
Okay, so today might be the last day of high drama. I think it might be the last attempt at high drama. The SEC is going to vote today. That's the Southeastern Conference on expanding, i.e. Texas and Oklahoma leaving to go to the SEC. The vote will likely be yes. The only mystery on that vote, and that mystery is now gone, was whether or not Texas's little brother, Texas A&M, I just assumed for their own self-worth and identity would vote no. I guess they took the drama out of that and have hinted today, A&M has, that they would go ahead and vote yes and recommend that the league expand. So I thought they'd be the only no vote. If I were A&M, I would have probably voted no just for self-preservation, just to say, we still don't like you. So we voted no. Instead, that part of it is almost off the table. Whether or not this dramatic vote that takes place today is even, up for grabs, I think is now off the table. The other drama is pretty entertaining to watch and, of course, comical. Been waiting for this to happen. Been waiting. We now know the political part of this seemed to be in trouble. It seemed to be missing all along. We didn't have the political muscle that you thought you might have, and I think that's largely because Greg Abbott is sort of chasing polling numbers and trying to wear a MAGA hat every day, so he's just not that interested. But it's not over politically. Davy Crockett is in the House. He is going to save Texas all over again. You have two last ditch attempts at saving the Big 12, which is kind of funny by itself because it's not really 12. Saving the Big 12 and stopping Texas and Oklahoma from bolting to the SEC, pretty much killing off the Big 12. Two attempts. One is interesting. It didn't see this one coming. And here you go, and that is the Big 12 issuing, I guess I should say, suing ESPN, which is Disney, for those that don't know. And business isn't necessarily great. But the Big 12, oddly enough, in like the last ditch Hail Mary, has essentially threatened ESPN. This one, I don't know if it has legs. I find it hard to believe it has legs, but here you go. Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby sent an eye-opening cease and desist letter to ESPN regarding the current state of the conference. Bowlesby stated in the letter that ESPN reached out to at least one of the remaining Big 12 teams about potentially leaving the conference. He writes, this is Bob here, trying to save the Big 12 that is really not 12. It has come to my direct attention that ESPN, the current business partner of the Big 12 Conference, has taken certain actions that are intended not only harm the Big 12 Conference, but to result in the financial benefits of ESPN. We don't say, Bob. Really? What a shock. Setting aside ESPN's potential involvement in the recent announcement by the University of Texas and the University of Oklahoma that they intend to leave the Big 12 Conference, not really 12, in 2025. He says he has documented evidence. I don't know that anyone would disagree with old Bob here. He says that he has documented evidence that ESPN tried to encourage, I'm reading now, to encourage an unnamed conference to add Big 12 members in an effort to destabilize the league so Texas and OU could avoid exit fees. ESPN responded, and they pretty much said, shut up, Bob. Okay. Is he right? Yeah, probably. Is there legal standing? I don't know. I doubt it. Here's the problem, Bob. ESPN, Disney, is in the content business. Your content sucks. Sorry, lights out. Goodbye. ESPN, the last time I checked, is in the business model of content, the business model of engagements, the business model of having the best content possibly. And Kansas and Texas Tech playing opposite of Florida and Georgia, it's just not a good night, Bob. Your content mostly sucks. Sorry. It's over. Next up, though, because you got this interesting fight with ESPN. I don't think it goes anywhere. I think they've already flipped him off. I think he's trying to scratch and claw and do what he can. But we've been waiting for the political muscle this whole time. History of conference realignments has been full of political muscle, political pressure, successful political pressure in the state of Texas. So finally, some political muscle comes to the table. And of course, it comes to the table with the man that is, I call him Davy Crockett, and he gets to show that he's Davy Crockett all over again because he's going to save the state of Texas. Davy tried to do it, and Danny Goeb, a.k.a. Dan Patrick, is here to save the day. So here he comes. I think he's going to get laughed at again, but he's going to try. He's going to flex some political muscle because, I can't say his boss, because Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is the most powerful person in the state of Texas. His boss right now has got bigger issues. He's trailing Donald Trump Jr. in the polling data, so he's got bigger issues than Texas and Oklahoma bailing. So now, Danny Goeb, who is Dan Patrick, the great Texan that is Danny Goeb, a.k.a. Dan Patrick. You know, the guy that went to the University of Maryland at Baltimore, the guy from Baltimore, is here to save the state of Texas. Did he go to A&M, Jeff? Nope. Did he go to Tech? Nope. Texas State? Nope. That's the University of Maryland at Baltimore. So Danny Goeb, a.k.a. Dan Patrick, says, hang on a second. You can't. This deal can't go down yet. I got to study this. I don't even know what this means. On the day of the vote, he's announced it's time to study this. Reported by the Texas Tribune. It just makes me laugh. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick wants a new Texas Senate Select Committee to study the athletic and economic impacts other colleges in the state will face from the University of Texas potential departure from the Big 12 Athletic Conference. Well, you know what, Danny from Maryland, I'm going to bet the impact is pretty dramatic. I'm going to bet that in Lubbock, Texas, which is where this noise is coming from, that he's listening to, because he's all rural all the time. And he hates Austin, right? It's a terrible place, the devil. So I'm going to guess a pretty decent argument is made by the people of Lubbock or the people of Fort Worth or, God help them, the people of Waco when they say, man, if we don't have Texas coming to play, if we don't have Oklahoma coming to play, life here kind of sucks. We can't sell as much beer and waffles. I bet you they're right, Dan. I bet you the economic impact is pretty great. And you know how much Texas will care? That would be a zero. You know how much ESPN is going to care? That would be a zero. Waco and Lubbock are not their problem. But he now says that he needs to study the economic impact. Of course, that begs to ask the question, after he gets a group together, the Senate committee, after he gets them together and they study this and they find out, Waco just doesn't do very well outside of selling cigarettes and beef jerky on any normal day, but game days are pretty good for us. Yeah, now what? He's going to come back and say, I suspect you can predict this. He's going to come back and say, I'm looking out for you, Waco. I'm looking out for you, Lubbock. I'm looking out for you, Fort Worth. And you're really taking a dramatic hit. And then he's going to have to make that argument that dramatic hit is enough to do something to Texas. Make them pay even more, whatever. He's trying to ride in, and he's probably got a musket. He's going to hold it above his head. He's going to say, I came in from Baltimore, and I'm here to save the day, and I'll get you, Texas. And they're going to give him the middle finger. And his boss, or not his boss, the governor's going to say, man, I don't have time for that right now. Don Jr.'s kicking my butt. I got bigger problems. So these are last, I guess you could say, last-ditch attempts to save the deal. And anybody in their right mind really think nobody really wants them to be saved unless you're in Lubbock, unless you're in Fort Worth, and unless you're in Waco. Sounds like Texas put the pieces together quietly. Sounds like Texas put the pieces together the way it wanted. And yes, it sounds like ESPN was in on it, and no one can blame them. And it sounds like it's a pretty sad day for people trying to save the Big 12 because you have been rendered dead. You're dead man walking. And I don't know what Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick from Maryland is going to do about it. Now, what's funny is he's going to try and get some headlines. He's going to try to make some news on the very day this vote takes place to vote them in. Sorry, Davey. Sorry, Bob, and the Big 12 that's not really 12. You know, Texas killed you off. They did. They win. They win again, as usual. They make all the money. They step on you. But the truth of the matter is they created you and let you have a little bit of money during that time. They let you have a nice little run. They threw some money your way, and it's probably over. It's probably over, but we can watch the entertainment as Dan Patrick tries to save them with his musket. John McClellan is the co-founder and creator of ATX Hot Sauce, now in all 50 states and several retail outlets as well. So what we're going to do today is we're going to let this social media rock star chef walk us through 4 different sauces, and then I'll taste, and we'll tell everyone why they should buy. You can give the science behind these, and then I'll make the simple recommendation. Go to atxhotsauce.com. All right,
I don't think
let's
anybody's
go.
heard the website.
Yeah, I know.
About you, Jeff,
I've never heard that.
It is atxhotsauce.com.
I'll say
I got that one right.
345 times, atxhotsauce.com. So let's do it.
I brought 4 flavors here, and we're going to test your palate today.
Okay.
And I only brought 4 because I didn't think you could handle 5 or 6.
Yes,
probably a smart move. Yeah. And so the first one we're going to try here is called Beet Heat. And just like the name implies, it has beets in it. It's made with red Fresno peppers. Red Fresnos are red peppers that are they're hotter than a jalapeno and a little bit less than a serrano. So not super hot here, just a lot of good, really good flavor. So we're going to start with this one, and then we're going to move up the chain.
Okay. I've had the Beet Heat, but okay.
Yeah, we're going to try it though.
It goes well with a cab. All right, Jeff's savoring Beet
I'll
Heat.
even do it with you, so that should be all right. Now remember, it is hot sauce.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's hot sauce. Trust me, man.
Wait,
It's hot sauce.
is that one hot to you?
No. A little.
Yeah. The great thing with the fermentation process is you get a bunch of the flavor right up front.
Yeah.
And then the heat comes, but then it dissipates pretty quickly, especially with the red Fresnos. You know, this is not a very spicy one, but it is a very tasty one. Goes on great on sandwiches.
Beet Heat.
Beet Heat. B-E-E-T. Heat.
All right. Go to atxhotsauce.com.
That's right.
I don't even know if high drama is an accurate way to put it, or at least last-ditch attempts to save the old Big 12 that's not really 12. He's a longtime columnist for the Austin American-Statesman. He is Kirk Bohls, who has followed quite a few of these things now, and this one sounds like it's going to be a done deal. Hey, Kirk, so you have a threat to ESPN today, cease and desist. You guys muck this whole thing up. That's not fair. You have Dan Patrick now putting together a Senate committee. You have the vote set to take place today, but then A&M shocks some of us, maybe not you, I'm not sure, and says, you know what, go ahead and do the deal. Does anything stop this from happening? Anything remotely in the ballpark of stopping this from happening?
That snowball is almost to the bottom of the hill. Okay, there's no stopping this, and I think the last straw there were some in the Aggie camp, especially Jeff, that wanted Greg Abbott to stop it, but I think he made a decision long ago and signed off on this. Made a political calculation that maybe he'll lose some Aggie money for the election in 2022, but it's not like maybe that Aggie money would be going to a Democratic candidate. So I think he kind of put his finger in the air and said, yeah, this makes sense for me. It makes sense for Texas. He is a UT guy. So, no, I don't think anything can stop it now, Jeff.
So A&M, maybe you know some backstories to this. Surprisingly, even just for PR, even for self-preservation, I'm a little bit surprised that A&M doesn't just go ahead and vote no. It's not going to stop it. But just to say, we still don't like you. You're our big brother. We wanted to get away from you. I'm just surprised that if A&M votes yes. A little surprised by that.
I would say I would disagree only because what does it matter? And if you're the only lone dissenter vote, it's like, yeah, you're weak. You're scared of us, big bad Longhorns. And so just get on board. It's a fait accompli. It's the old, we unanimously decided when, it wasn't ever unanimous. So I think it was just, to me, it would show more weakness if they voted no. We know they vote no. We know they want no.
Right,
they want nothing to do with the Longhorns. So in a lot of ways, it's just semantics.
This deal, I assume, now you got the Bob Bowles be the commissioner of the Big 12, he's in a terrible spot.
Yes.
What is the backstory of how meticulously and quietly this was put together? Because the fact that this just got out, with people like you digging and digging and digging, the fact that this just got out days before the final vote is pretty remarkable in this day and time.
It's stunning. You're exactly right, Jeff. And, I first got wind of it about 5 days before it came out. And one day before I went to Minnesota on vacation, I think here's a couple of reasons why it was kept so quiet is that there's been a change of leadership in the Texas hierarchy. Kevin Eltife, chairman of the Board of Regents. How many people have heard of Kevin Eltife? Okay. I think he was running the show. Jay Hartzell's been president not even a year officially as full-time UT president. So, that's new. Del Conte's only been here a few years, and, I don't think he's running this at all. I think it's mostly a Kevin Eltife show. And from what I have learned is that he was going around to talk to other SEC presidents. So it's at the highest level. And while we're talking to coaches and ADs, every day, sometimes seems like on the hour, nobody's interviewing these presidents,
Right.
So I think that kind of helped it, kind of stay in a vacuum, if you will.
Well, okay. So did anyone even bother to ask the new head coach at Texas? Did anyone even bother to ask the AD? I mean, how much say did they have then?
Zero.
Really?
Yeah, I think they had zero. This is just made at the boardroom level, I think. It's just too big a decision. This is changing college athletics forever. We're going from Power 5 conference to a Power 4 conference, probably in all likelihood. The Big 12 may survive in some form, but not as a Power 5 conference. So, it is remarkable. And there's a part of me that thinks, okay, this in a way had to be done in the darkness. Because say we're sitting here a year ago, Jeff, and Texas and Oklahoma announced, hey, just want to let you know, we decided we're going to start talking to the SEC. May or may not come to fruition. Maybe it will. I don't know. But let's just play games. There would have been a cloud and overshadowed every game, everything that the Big 12 did. So I understand that. On the other side of the coin, they're doing a disservice to the rest of the Big 12. They ought to just ante up. This is what you want. Pay for it. Go on down the road, play one more year of meaningless football in the Big 12, and then go on to the SEC.
The accusation that ESPN was in on it, was behind the scenes. I've just before you came on, defended ESPN, saying, listen, they're in the content business. They're trying to save themselves too, and your content's just not very good. But the accusation that ESPN was intimately involved, is that true? I mean, so you got the head of on the Texas side, is from day one, was ESPN in on the entire thing?
I think they had to be. I don't think the SEC goes this far down the road without consulting the ESPN and saying, okay, hey, ESPN, we got a proposition for you. How much would our rights fees go up if we added, say, just, pull a couple names out of the hat, Texas and Oklahoma. Would you be willing to pay us more money? They're partners.
Yeah.
It's like doing this. It's like just showing up one day and telling your wife, oh, hey, by the way, we're moving to Maine. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you, but It was just very sensitive. So, yeah, ESPN was involved.
Is there any legs to the Big 12 threat of, I don't even know what this means, cease and desist? In other words, stop what you're doing. Well, they've already done it. I mean, so what are they supposed to stop?
Oh, you know what it's about, Jeff? It's about, okay, how much money can we get?
Okay.
And what's funny, you could even argue it's a little disingenuous for the Big 12 to go, ESPN, you screwed us. Oh, by the way, where's our check?
Yeah.
Can we get our check? You're in bed. We're in bed with each other.
Yeah.
So, and we're in the every man for himself phase. Everybody's trying to survive. Everybody's trying to make a buck. But yeah, it's, you know who the winners are, don't you? The winners are going to be the lawyers.
Yeah, of course. Would this have happened if it was Governor Rick Perry?
Now, that's a good question. That's a very good question. It would have been a lot more unrest. It would have been a lot more disharmony, and there'd been a lot more blowback. That's a good question. And, you ask yourself, what if DeLoss Dodds had been running this? Would it have happened? And, as much national cachet as he did, he could still pull this off. But, have an Aggie governor instead of a Texas governor, yeah, I think it would have been a lot harder to pull this off because, we saw when Ann Richards was the governor, right. And so it was more Sibley and Waco, the legislator, and Bob Bullock, the lieutenant governor, who had ties to TCU and Texas Tech that tried to help derail. But the Pac-12 thing, as we all know, Jeff, was going through till the last second. And then Texas pulled the plug because, one, they wanted to keep the Longhorn Network, and two, they didn't want their volleyball, tennis, and golfers coming back at 5 a.m. from California over and over and over. To me, those were the two biggest reasons, that and the time zone difference.
So Abbott, it was run by Abbott, and he said, "You've got my blessing," or "I don't have time." I've made the jokes that here's a guy seemingly running for president. The last thing he needs to be dealing with right now with polling numbers and not even registering is this kind of stuff. Did the Board of Regents pick the perfect political time to make this move? Maybe a time unlike any other.
Probably right. It's inconceivable to me that Abbott didn't know what was going on. The regent served at his pleasure.
Right.
Kevin Elklife, the Texas chairman, it was appointed by Greg Abbott and reappointed by Greg Abbott. You don't stay in your job if you're not, in concert with the governor. Okay. So, I feel like he was the two biggest questions are, when did the decision start and who all knew it? We always know who knew about the cover up and when. And the second thing is, okay, when does this start? When does this circus get off the road? Is it next year? Is it the year after that? Do they wait 4 years? So, those are the biggest issues, I think, going forward.
What's the near term and long term future of Baylor football, TCU football, even for that matter, Texas Tech football? What kind of lifeline do they really have?
That's a good question.
I would assume not much, or at least whatever it is today, it's going to be half of or a third of what it is today.
Absolutely. That's the reality that they're facing right now. And I think it's going to be harder for the smaller religious affiliated schools like Baylor, like TCU, like SMU, that were not going to be attractive to the California schools and the Pac-12. I don't know if they've been on record as saying that, but, you remember they didn't want Baylor,
Right.
They wanted Colorado. And so then Colorado jumped early because they thought, well, we might get left behind. Maybe they will take Baylor. So I think they're in a world of trouble. And I don't know if there's just going to be some patchwork thing like they claim ESPN is trying to arrange with the American Athletic Conference. The Pac-12, to me, they're the most vulnerable and the weakest of the Power 5 conferences, short of the Big 12, obviously. So I would think they need to do something. And if I'm them, I try again to get into Texas. And I tweeted that maybe, the two best options for them are Texas Tech with 41,000 plus enrollment, a huge fan base in DFW, and maybe Houston. Even though Houston's not in the Power 5 conference, great basketball program, competitive in a lot of sports, recruiting hotbed, easy airport access, and travel's a big issue, as you know. So I think Oklahoma State's a great one because you got a lot of eyeballs in Oklahoma that are football centric, and Oklahoma State's good in nearly every sport. So I would think, those would be the natural ones to look at.
I've gotten some blowback from saying this, and that is I've said that I'd be careful what you ask for here. I'm not quite sure the SEC is the best fit for Texas that people think. So when you tell me that this started at the Board of Regents level and not from the sports level, it's even more curious to me. And the argument there is, and I argued that I think the Pac-12 is a better fit for Texas just because of the bigger markets, the academic, the the like-minded institutions. The SEC is not exactly the Harvard of the South, right? So,
you're being kind.
I'm being very kind. And so, in essence, you're saying you're going to the best football league to go make the most money, and practically nothing else really matters. I made the case. I mean, I'm not saying, look, it's going to be the best football. Yes, it opens the door to better football. But one of the things that is used against Texas and will be used against Texas is the very thing that Dan Patrick is probably arguing today. Those elites, those high-tech elites in Austin, Texas, that's not a poor kid from the South friendly city. They're going to be recruiting against the fact that it is Austin. We love Austin, everything about Austin we love, but I'm not some poor kid from southern Louisiana who's saying, I don't even know what Facebook is all about in that big tech city. Mm-hmm. It's a weird, slightly dangerous marriage that I don't think people want to acknowledge.
It's not the best cultural fit at all.
Right.
You're touched on that extremely well. And A&M is, more rural, more conservative, more small town. Texas, Austin is different. We all know that. We've got MLS, pro sports, for Pete's sakes now. It is different politically, culturally, pretty much every way you want to go down the line. It's not a cultural fit. It's a fit in terms of you have all these flagship institutions of their state, the LSUs, the Alabamas, the Georgias, Floridas, go on down the list. And so it fits from that standpoint. And in terms of passion, Texas wants to be good. They want to be Texas again. They don't want to be satisfied with being second fiddle like they feel they have been in the Big 12. But no, they're going to be so much fun made of Texas and so much disparaging comment. The horns down thing. It's a marriage of convenience, and it's just a big power broken. It's like a big political, a big corporate merger, if you will. Makes sense monetarily.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit surprised that, and maybe you can answer this, that maybe the Board of Regents did take that into account. I mean, and that is, we're going into NASCAR land here, and Austin, Texas is not NASCAR land. This is not MAGA hat land. I mean, this is a completely different world where, no doubt about it, as you know, the best football, maybe the only place left of great high school football, is the Deep South. It's a way of life. It is a culture, and recruiting in the Deep South, you're recruiting poor kids from the Deep South. Austin, I remember playing a knock even then on Texas was, man, that is a big town, big campus. You're not going to feel at home there. You're not going to feel like one of them. You're going to be an outcast there. It's something I'm surprised that academically and culturally it was so easy to sign off on.
And that's kind of the joke, inside joke, is this is a Texas school that looked down upon the SEC forever. It's like, oh, that's a cheating conference. And coming from the Southwest Conference, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's a cheating conference. It's a, country conference, rural bumpkin conference. They don't appreciate academics. The only big academic schools are Florida and Vanderbilt. Nobody cares about Vanderbilt. But now they got A&M, Missouri, and now Texas, all AAU schools, one of the three of the top 64 academic research institutions in the world. So the academics has gone up. But basically, I always heard the faculty won't allow that. And you talked earlier about like-minded schools. You look at who Texas scheduled in football. They'd play Stanford and Cal and North Carolina and Virginia. Level playing field, recruiting from the same pool. Finally, I think Texas just threw its hands up and said, we want to sit at the big boy table. We think the Big 12 has held us back. Well, Texas has held itself back. They should hold itself accountable. But in fairness, we always thought the Big 12 was on borrowed time forever, and definitely the last 10 years as they've flirted with other conferences. And, and every time you think you're trying to sell tickets too, Jeff, it's like, well, you may have one marquee game. 2 years ago was LSU coming in here. You had Iowa State come in here. You had Notre Dame come in. But who's on the rest of your home schedule? You don't have the Aggies anymore. OU's always in Dallas. So you're trying to sell your tickets to Iowa State, to Kansas, to West Virginia, and those don't move the needle. Then you look down the road or up the road at College Station. Oh, they're playing Alabama at Kyle Field. Who they have next week? LSU. How about the week after that? Florida. It's sexy. And I think Texas has just lost its national relevance, and they feel like this can help them regain that. More money, more prestige, keep Texas recruits.
Yeah,
home.
but is it? I mean, you lose 5 games a year. I mean, are you really back?
Exactly.
I just think if I'm the football coach, on one hand you'd say, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get in the deep south and recruit players." Then you realize, wait a minute, I'm going to get my face kicked in every single week. I mean, they're going to be a 3, 4, 5 loss team pretty regularly, right?
Hey, hope springs eternal. They feel like they got to fix football one of these days, right? It's not like they've been bad 100 years. They feel like, well, they'll luck into a good football coach. Charlie Strong didn't work. Tom Herman didn't work. Let's get a Nick Saban protege.
Yeah.
Although his assistants aren't killing it either.
Yeah.
Kirby Smart's doing well, but a lot of his assistants haven't done it. It's a gamble. And it's almost like, well, if we lose 4 or 5 every year, at least if we lose it in the SEC, we're going to get more money and rub elbows with the big boys. And we'll, the old rising tide raises all boats. And you could make the argument that A&M hadn't won anything in that league. Now they've gotten closer, and they're far ahead of Texas football right now.
But you think about A&M a year ago, which was a really good team, their best team in a long time on both sides of the ball. Exactly. It takes a lot of money and a lot of work and a lot of luck to even get where A&M was last year, and they weren't even rewarded with a big prize. So it's like you get in the SEC, you're measurably a better football program. It's just not showing up on the scoreboard.
And you could say, why didn't A&M crack the top 4? Who'd they get edged out by? Oh, yeah, Notre Dame. Yeah. That's a pretty nice brand, and Texas thinks its brand is going to help it a lot, and that's one reason it was appealing for the SEC to invite them in Oklahoma. You got 2 power brands, in college football. So, but yeah, you definitely need to go in here with the eyes open. A&M is, I don't know if you want to say far ahead of Texas, but they sure are, whether they can sustain it or not, who knows? They're changing quarterbacks. They lose 4 offensive linemen. Who knows? But their schedule gets a lot softer.
But A&M and Texas play, which they should be playing. I think we agree on this. They should be playing. It just is a matter of fact. Should be playing each other every year. But Absolutely. Had they played a year ago, A&M beats Texas by how many?
21 maybe.
Yeah,
something like that. They clearly had the better team
by far.
And now can the Aggies sustain it? They got smacked. Across the face. We don't care what you think, A&M. We're doing this for the betterment of the conference.
This had to be the ultimate reminder. You're my little brother.
Exactly. And now what A&M's challenge is to do is to stay good in football, stay better than Texas. They were selling exclusivity. We're the only SEC team in the state. Well, they don't have that anymore. So what they need to sustain is that, well, we were first. We got here first. And yeah, we're better than you are right now. So if I'm A&M, I'm saying let's play Texas as soon as we can.
Yeah.
Once they join the SEC, and let's show who's the better program.
Well, on the A&M side, at the highest level, at the corporate level, were they fighting this all along, or are they just saying that publicly?
They were fighting it all along.
Okay.
I know the vote for the regions 8-1. One regent voted against it, because voting is conscience. But yeah, they hated this, and that's why I think the story finally came out when it did, because they wanted it out there, trying to stop it.
Okay.
At the 11th hour, but it just didn't work.
5 years from now, what does the landscape look like in college football?
Well, I think ultimately this is really bad for college football, because you want more competition. The NFL, they operate on that whole parity thing.
Yeah.
The worst team get the highest drafts, the easier schedule, because they want every fan base engaged.
Yeah.
And now you've just, punched in the face the fan bases of 8 Big 12 programs. And you could say you've diminished the other conferences too. So I don't know in what world you would argue, oh, yeah, this is great for college football.
Yeah, it would seem that this is the natural shakeup of what's left. It'd be 4 big leagues of the haves, and then everybody else is playing,
right.
The next division down of the have-nots.
Yeah, because we've been expecting this and talking about this for 25 years. We're going to have super conferences, mega conferences. One interesting argument too to throw into this is the whole 12-team playoff, because that's only come about in the last couple months.
Right.
So you got to figure Texas, OU, and the SEC were far down this road, and so you wonder if they woke up. I don't know what day that was, May 1st or whatever, when it first came out, and you wonder if Texas, Oklahoma went, 12-team playoffs. Boy, Oklahoma and Texas have great chances to get in every year, right where they were. But that's not
you mean the thinking there is okay, so we lose 3, but the playoff has been expanded, so
exactly.
we have a good if in the beauty contest we look pretty good. We got a chance to get in, so we can had the 12-team playoff not come around. Are you hinting that maybe they would have not made this move?
They might have looked harder at it, but I think ultimately the big picture was this is better for Texas. This is better for Oklahoma. But it might have given them a little bit of pause and I think a lot of logical people are looking at it like, why would you leave that? You're in the small pond. You're the big fish. Oklahoma's won 6 titles in a row. Why would they go into the SEC? You're a bunch of sharks. So it might have given them pause, but ultimately I don't think it would have stopped anything.
What mattered more, making a lot more money or the football street cred?
Well, they've got more money than the Vatican, we've been told. Right. So really, how much is enough?
Yeah.
How much is enough? So I think it's more about relevance. Texas wants to be relevant. And, personally, I think they should have joined the SEC 25 years ago, because to the rank and file fan, they don't give a hoot when you talk AAU and academics and, Vanderbilt's got a great library. We want to be a part of that. So it's about the game ultimately. And I think they are going to be where they belong.
All right. Fair enough. Good stuff. Kirk, as always, good talking to you, man.
You too, buddy. You look great.
All right. Thank you.
From the Hot Pie Media Studios in Austin, Texas, it's the Jeff Ward Show. Listen at jeffwardshow.com.